coach, consultant, agency owner has been told the same lie. Especially in this industry, the past couple of years, SMMA, these ad agencies have been pitching everybody, right? Including you. You probably, I should say, have gotten pitched and sold multiple different times. Have been burned multiple different times. Well, the same exact, up and coming agency that claimed they, did this, did that, can do the same exact thing for you. But whether or not they were, wrongfully selling you, whether or not they were actually good at what they were doing, they didn't get you the results that you wanted. Now, why is that, right? You've been told the same lie over and over again. You need more traffic, you need more leads to scale your business. You need more eyes on your stuff, right? Now, at the very beginning, when you're starting at 0 to 10K, that is where you need more eyes and more proof of concept. We're going to go very in depth here in a second on how exactly, what it looks like from there until now. But it's not more traffic, it's not more leads, and it surely isn't more ads to scale, right? I'm RJ. I'm going to go pretty in depth here on the exact system I take every single business, coach, consultant, agency owner that I work with, look at their funnel, map out a diagnostic, figure out what's leaking, figure out why you can't really scale, and fix it, and then use ads and more traffic into that exact same system that we fixed, and then you finally are able to scale past your ceiling. Okay, let's get right into it. So first things first, the common story, right? We kind of just went over it and why you're currently staying stuck. Number one, the 0 to 10K mark, right? You start out building everything from referrals, from cold outreach. This is like where everybody starts out, right? Get pitched. How this happens to me when I first started out, right? You're getting pitched by people who think you can do better when you don't, when you have like a client or two or three, right? You think you can make your content better and edit. You can get your ads ran for you when you're not even spending money on ads, right? And so like you try to scale the system before you even diagnose what's wrong or even have proof of concept, right? So you already have proof of concept right now. That's why you're making the revenue. That's why you got the results. That's why you get the testimonials, right? And you have the revenue coming in to prove it. And so maybe you brought in an agency. You probably did. The agency A didn't know or didn't think about diagnosing your funnel or didn't care to diagnosing your system and business and where it's leaking. They just wanted to sell you, right? And rightfully so, you went on with it thinking it was going to work. And it didn't work. So you end up burning a lot of money on these services and the ads. And you obviously know you're not the only one. So like just going forward, right, there's multiple, that's why I'm making this video. There's multiple different people that got burned and spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on ad agencies when they're bad at what they do, or you don't know better to not actually hire them before getting an audit on your business, right? And so you're in the same position after the fact. Lowered trust, spend, no results, and not trusting any agency, and you're just wasting your time, right? You're even thinking that about me perhaps, but no, I'm not going to pitch you here on ad services, right? This is all about diagnosing your funnel and system, right? And this is all while you can continue to get pitched by the next ad agency doing the exact same thing and just wording it differently, right? And we see this every single day, right? They didn't mention or do a diagnosis on your business, or else they wouldn't have sold you ad services because you never needed them in the first place, and you still probably don't need them, right? You want to scale, and scaling and pouring more water into a bucket with multiple different holes in it is not going to do anything, right? And that's why it didn't work, okay? And what is a diagnosis or a diagnostic? If you're not familiar with that, that's seeing exactly where you're struggling at right now. If you don't know, see which areas you're leaking the most revenue based on math, right? And then attacking the one that is going to make the most revenue for you without putting more traffic or more money on ads, right? Just fixing it, okay? And then doing the math on how you should actually scale afterwards and how much money it would make you by fixing that one bottleneck, right? And it's quite a lot when you fix it. So let's walk through this exact process in depth. Like I got a whole video for you. So if you've seen my other video for you on the Revian scaling system, this is why 99% of you guys are failing, right? And so like the first 10 to 20K, it's just getting proof of concept, right? It's just getting eyes on your business, proof of service delivery, proof of actual demand, right? Figuring out what truly works, okay? And so you're here, right? You're in this business owner category, right? You have the bottlenecks, and that's exactly why you don't need ads right now. Yes, you can get them, but like you're gonna end up in the same position. You're only gonna scale to like 30K a month from 20K, or like from 25 to 35. Maybe like $8,000 to $10,000 more in new revenue, but it's not gonna be as consistent as before, right? And it's based on if they're good at what they do, and so you don't really need more leads, more traffic, more content, more eyes, right? And so like regardless if you think you have a bottleneck, you probably do, right? And you need to fix that bottleneck in order to get to this corporation stage, what I like to call it 50 $1,000 a month plus to 100K, right? Once you're at 6 figures a month, like you're really rolling, right? And everything changes after that, right? You need to hire teams, right? But now you have this issue, you bottlenecks in the system, okay? And so like this is the exact full stack process I've already went over in another video, but we're gonna go very in depth here in just a second. So you have a main source of revenue, right? You're either making 10, 15K, or this is when you're making your first little bit of money, right? Cold outreach, any sort of organic reach, right? And so maybe, like I said before, maybe you used into the paid ads, right? But this has a different concept everywhere, right? This is probably why you already tried paid ads. You didn't understand that you're scaling your existing offer, the stuff that's working, right? And you think it's working, but it really isn't. You're leaking money and revenue in multiple different places, right? And we're going to go over here in a second, right? It's used to drive traffic and drive, from existing audience to grow your existing audience and existing offer and existing, proof of concept, right? And put it on steroids, like give your business more fuel to the fire, right? You're going to reach that next revenue mark and more. Right, you're gonna easily break through your system because you have something that's actually working, right? So, right, here's just kind of like the breakdown of what it actually should look like. You've got your ads, you got your funnel, you got your nurturing, lost sale, right, or a down sell. This should be better presented, but yeah, you got your close, client fulfillment, and then you scale, right? And so that's you're really here. So, you got your ads, and then this is the part that's likely broken, right? And so it's just like here. Right, and so like your client fulfillment, you're probably that's where your hiring systems come out. You probably don't have too many clients where you need to hire people out, really. Maybe just like a sales closer or maybe a video editor, but you need to fix that bottleneck first before you do any of that, right? And so like very briefly, this is the breakdown of the system. You got your your landing pages here, and any source of your funnels, like your VSL, your DMs, your webinar, challenge funnels, low ticket to high ticket, maybe free, low to high, something like that, right? And there's multiple different funnels, right? So or DM conversations, so you got a CTA, you're leading them somewhere. More times than not, you're booking a call, right? And when you book a call, you obviously pitch them. You close them for like 3, 4, maybe $10,000 plus, regardless on your offer and your niche that you're in right now. And obviously you have your onboarding and then your client success, upsell mechanism, downsell mechanism. And if you don't have these, like, there you go. There you go. That's how you can scale too, right? On the back end rather than the front end. But, this is the focus on, making more money on the front end in terms of your funnel and your system there, right? And so like ascension or descension, right? Anything here, right? You can descend or, send somebody, okay. So more on the actual diagnosis, right? And so you have a pipe here. So all this green is your traffic, right? And so regardless if you're running ads right now or not, regardless if you have run ads or not, right, in the past or not, you have people coming through, right? Organic or paid traffic, right? And so like there's multiple different ways a bottleneck can come up, right? You can have a bottleneck for people coming through, like clicking your ad, right? Coming onto your Instagram page and clicking the link in your bio, regardless if it's a VSL type form or like application just there, or if you have just a straight booking link, right? Which I don't recommend either, right? And so this can be a bottleneck, right? You can have the stop of the flow. So once that happens, you have a lot more people here get stuck or just leave, right, before they get to the landing page. But odds are you have, people are getting through to this landing page, okay? And so you can have a bottleneck here, you can have a bottleneck here, you can have a bottleneck here, right? And so really every step of this entire funnel, you can have bottlenecks, right? And so that's what we, I hop on calls with our clients that I work with to really go in depth here on the math, on, actual numbers, right? But this is just like, for structure and for frame, right? And so like, if you are having a lot of people going to your landing page, but not a lot of people applying, your VSL or your video or your messaging on your landing page is really bad, right? You got to look at your numbers to determine if you actually are getting a lot of people on your landing page, and then if you're not getting a lot of bookings or like a lot of applications, then it's just a step before that's altering your statistics on the front end, right? And leading less traffic and less revenue, okay? And so going forward, right? And so most of you guys are just focusing on traffic, right? More people on here, and that does not mean way more people to get closed. No, it gets more people to here. That's it, right? And so if you have a bottleneck here, right? And you don't have a lot of people booking calls, and you just keep sending more and more and more people into that, bottleneck, into that leak, you're just going to keep losing people. You lose way more money. Yes. So if you have a bottleneck here, so a lot of people are actually, filling out the application but not booking. That's a very small percentage here. But for example, you keep focusing on traffic. You're running ads. You're like spending $3 to $5 to $6 or $10,000 plus on ads, and just sending way more traffic than you should to this bottleneck here. The amount of revenue you're going to be losing and not capitalizing on is huge. Like if you're 10K a month ad spend, you're going to be losing like multiple tens of thousands of dollars based on your AOV, right? Just do the math here. Right, we're going to do some math here in a little bit, but just this is like very basic frameworks of how to like spot bottlenecks, right? And so like, again, to reiterate, you have the traffic here. If like a big one here is show up rates, right? You're going to have a big, a lot of you guys don't even have a lot of best practices in place for show up rates and for your calls in general. So you're going to have a lot of build up here, right? Just a lot of revenue here, right? And so like this goes on, the nurture window framework. I might go over and cover here real quick. So, and why ads likely actually failed you, right? So we kind of covered it already, but you're focusing on the traffic, and you have a bottleneck, somewhere down the line, right? And so let's get a different, maybe your bottleneck is, just sales calls in general, or you're just not getting people, really with urgency on the phone. And you're bad at sales, or you have a bad closer, or you're not giving them nurturing or educating them before they even show up to the call, so they don't know who you are, they don't know, like, and trust you, so you have a really poor close rate, right? You have, for cold traffic, it's anywhere below 25%, that you should increase your close rate, right? You need to be probably worried about that, but you have to look at the entire statistics of your funnel, right? You can't just look at your close rates and be like, oh, I need to change something now, or you have to look upstream, right? And so that's why they likely, failed, right? And it's probably 50% that reason, and also the other 50% is just like the people you hired, right? And so like to reiterate again, you keep sending more traffic in, and you have traffic here, right? Traffic. But if your close rate is bad, to re-explain it again, you're not gonna get any closed deals. You're gonna get a few, but like if you try and scale like this, you could see why it's not working, right? Because imagine you just have a hole instead of a block, like instead of a wall, right? You have a hole here, and you're just gonna keep leaking leads, right? They're just gonna go out over here, right? They're never gonna go down the closed deal section, right? And so how you actually find it is really just like, I kind of went over it, but via organic or paid, right? The statistics you should have are different from each other. All right, let's go over to purple here. So obviously you have proof of concept. You're making multiples, tens of thousands of dollars a month right now. You don't want to just focus on traffic here. Whoa, you don't want to do that, right? You want to focus on finding where you're leaking in the system. Okay, just finding where you're leaking. If you're bottleneck here, you hop on a call with me, we go over your numbers, right? And say a lot of people go into your landing page, which is good, right? And then you're getting a decent amount of applications, and you get to like 10% of people who went on your landing page filled out the application. Okay, good. And then you have healthy amount of bookings. Okay, booking percentage is looking good. Okay, and you have a thank you page implemented. Not a lot of you guys have thank you pages and confirmation pages, with a bunch of different stuff on it that I have in another video, right? Then you have a problem with show up rates, right? Like your show rates are less than 50%, like they're 40%. And you're like, okay, I'm like, okay, cool. So we look at that, right? And it's like, okay, what's your close rate? My close rate's like at a 28%, right? And so this would be your bottleneck here, right? And so if you just pour way more traffic into this funnel, you should understand by now, right? This is all forever gonna stay the same, right? 4 out of 10 people are showing up to your calls, right? And then 28% out of the people who show up actually close. And then you say, okay, my AOV, right? Let's just say it's 6K. You have like an $8,000 offer, right? 6K. That's not going to change either, right? And so if we increase your show rate to at least, like benchmarks 57.5%, like you just have to go over the math here, right? And that's kind of like how and what I do for people who hop on a call with me, right? We go over this entire thing. I don't tell you, oh, you should do ads. No, I don't tell you, oh, you need to, you know, get more people into your funnel. You need more eyes. You need to change your offer. You actually just need to change your niche. No, I don't tell you that. No, and that's not something you should do in the first place, right? Unless like changing an offer is like the entire, like the very last thing you should do. Really, like it makes no sense because like how did you get to 20, 30, 40, 50K right now? How did you have people who like really like your offer, right? Yeah, it makes sense not to change it, right? And so the three most common bottlenecks I find: show rates, right? It's just, you know, people who actually show up to your calls, right? If it's like under 50% or 55% for cold traffic, like, you know, it's very, very poor, right? You should change that. You should look at it and be like, okay, how can I actually, you know, change my show rates and to increase them, right? You educate them. You have no trust assets, no sales assets. You have, you know, your sales team doesn't even care about, you know, the actual leads. They're lazy, whatever, right? And so the second problem, it could be lead quality, right? And just you're not disqualifying much, right? The ads or landing page messaging has no qualifying, right? So the wrong person actually, you know, self-selects in, right? And this can go on a couple of different, you know, things, right? Your messaging and your ads can be terrible, right? Your messaging and your ads can be good, and that doesn't match with your VSL or the landing page, right? In general, or your webinar or whatever you're doing. It doesn't match. They're not together. Like they don't flow, right? You could also just have like a landing page collecting, you know, a contact form. Like obviously you're not going to get much out of a contact form, right? You got to qualify for, you know, however you define a qualified lead, you got to qualify them based on, you know, in your application, right? And that, you know, that should be, you know, a very, you know, obvious thing, right? And you'd be surprised, you know, the amount of people that I see don't doing that, right? And then close rate, obviously it's a little bit harder to increase your close rate because, you know, it takes a lot of training, a lot of, you know, hiring A players, right? But usually it's not really the closer. Usually it's not the closer, but don't take my word for that. But the trust wasn't built before the call. So the closer like has zero, you know, starts at zero, right? He has to do the educating, the trust building, and collecting your revenue in the same exact call, which is a lot, right? And you should be familiar with sales and you should know that's a lot, right? You might be taking the calls yourself right now, you know? And so before working with me, this is Nick, by the way, a Nick client result and testimonial that I'm proving that I actually know what I'm talking about, right? So this is what his funnel. This is probably what a lot of your guys' looks like actually right now. So you have your ads or, you know, your traffic, right? We'll put a T here. And then you have like a main landing page, right? Whether it's this webinar challenge funnel or, you know, VSL, there's the word. You know, a lot of you guys are probably running VSL call funnels, or you don't even have a landing page and you're just running people to a calendar page, which is crazy, or to application, which is also crazy, unless it's warm traffic, and then you can have an argument with me. But then, you know, somebody, you know, fills out your application, whatever, very, very generic. I wouldn't say generic, I would say less than generic VSL funnel. So just for your little background on Nick, exactly, he was actually coming to us with, you know, a lot of, you know, bad systems in general, right? He couldn't really book people in. And the first month we got him actually 75 qualified leads. We fixed his, you know, a few different things actually. You know, landing page, I have entire video on this if you want to go look at it. Here's just like, you know, the results. You know, made him over $56,000 in 32 days on $1.2 thousand in ad spend. And this was after we fixed his bottleneck, not before, right? You know, so the first month was fixing his bottleneck. Where's the pen? Oh, thank you. So fixing his bottleneck, and then here this came a little bit after, right? And so once we got proof of concept, that's when we just put the just gassed it up, and it was lethal. It was dangerous. A 46 return on ad spend is kind of crazy, right? That's exactly what we got him. You know, but anyway, this is the exact funnel that we built out for him. You know, it was paid, right? Not at first. It was organic. You know, it's the same implementation and same process, right? So we have, you know, traffic source. Let's make this a T. You know, very simple VSL, headlines, messaging, match the ads, qualifying everybody, right? Confirmation page. You know, this is what you guys don't have. Implement one. I'll tell you that, right? Main video, sub video. You know, the nurture window framework. Oh, what are these sub videos about? I have a lot of other videos on it, but like, you know, questions, objections, common concerns, expectations of your program, your services that you need to be covering that you see a lot in your sales calls. The nurture window framework, right? This is, you know, a bunch of different stuff, right? A bunch of different stuff. It's a very in-depth video on that on my channel. Go check it out. And then you just have the call, and you have the close, which a lot of people are actually showing up to because they care, know, like, and trust you. Actually care about what you do, right? So once you have, like, you found your bottleneck, right? Like maybe you have your show rates are bad. Like you need to know the KPIs as well. Like for show rates, I'll give you this one, and for close rates, right? For show rates, say for cold traffic, they need to be under roughly 55%. I like to go off at 57.5, just in the middle there, of highest and lowest we actually accept is 50%. It's still on, that's like the borderline, right? And then for close rates, anything under 25% for cold traffic is you need to take a look at what you're doing right now, right? And for warm, obviously it's like 30, 40, 50%. Some of you guys may be closing at 70%, and for show rates it's actually it's way higher, obviously. You wonder why, what the difference is between warm and cold. So the expectations are a little bit lower for cold because they take more time to get nurtured and educated, but there's a lot of specific ways you can really take advantage of that, right? And then you have fixed it. After you find your bottleneck, you fix it, right? And you make revenue after just fixing it, right? You just make revenue off of that. And sometimes like you increase your show rates or close rates or something along the lines inside your funnel that's leaking revenue. You scale from that alone, right? I've seen like multiple people. Like we have Alaya, right? She made multiple tens of thousands of dollars just fixing her, the quality of leads coming through her funnel, right? And she always started with her sales team, right? No. It was the quality of leads, and she was trusting multiple ad agencies. No, okay, you got to take a step back, look at all your entire system, like not just like the ads, not just your traffic, not just your lead, not just your offer, your content. You got to look at everything, right? Just take a step back and actually understand like what's really happening here. Where am I losing money? I don't need to keep pouring money into these ads and this content and time to keep getting the same result, to want something different, want more revenue, right? Usually most of the time it doesn't really work, and all the time I could say like it's not going to get you to the scaling point you really want because you have a massive hole, right? And we just went over that, right? Once you fix that, then it's truthfully time to scale. You're going to have a lot better time. Trust me, a lot better time once you fix your bottleneck, right? The biggest leaks. And this is the exact system I usually take clients from where you are currently at right now, 20, 30, 40, 50K a month to 100K plus, right? Your main source, exact system, right? The main source of revenue when you're lower down is organic. You could be doing paid ads, right? We went over this already. Getting an editor, content nurture, content traffic, consistent content inputs, right? This is your funnel, like whether or not whatever funnel you're doing, you probably have proof of concept with it already, right? And so DM conversation, CTA, leads, call, pitching, closing, whatever, right? And so this is the nurture window framework I like to do, right? This is some pretty good stuff here, right? And so like you have 4 core pieces of the strategy. You see me here preach about this all the time on my Instagram, and I have multiple different videos on my YouTube channel where you're likely watching this video, right? Enclosure best practices. Okay, so you have setters, you have closers, and then you have ads, SMS, value dense emails, organic videos, and short and long form, right? Well, I'm not going to go in depth here on what the jobs of these and what exactly that you put in these. I already have a video on that on my channel, but you have organic videos, short and long form. You present to your client, your prospects and leads to get like and trust you and your services, right? You have value dense emails doing the same exact thing, right? Whether or not how many you want to do a day, it's totally up to you. I do a lot. Just you know what I mean. Just to give you a hint. For SMS, I would just keep these as reminders. You don't really want to nurture somebody through SMS. You have ads, you have retargeting ads. So a lot of you guys aren't going to be doing this. To really build out this retargeting ad system, it doesn't cost that much more, but you do need 50 conversions a week on whatever your target. Your conversion mechanism inside the ads manager actually is, whatever you selected, whether it's schedule, purchase, filling out the application, you know what I mean, booked call, right? This all applies to the nurturing, right? And don't forget about the sales team, because they are like a big part of it, like a big sleeper in this process, right? So a lot of you probably, it really depends, right? If you have a setter and a closer, if you don't have a setter, you could just have the closer do everything, right? It's very, very simple. Just reaching out to the prospect, building that client relationship before they even hop on a call, right? Knowing they're, a lot about them, a lot, asking them questions, like what they do outside of this. Like you're in the discovery phase for the sales call anyway. Outside of the actual sales call, right? You're getting to know and like them. He's getting to know and like the closer because that's the first face he sees and hears, right? These are the first, besides you on their phone, right? When they book a call, this is the first actual human interaction that they have. So it's the most important part, right, of getting to know, like, and trust your services, right? We can go in and on that about that all day, right? And so it's just the ultimate goal here, cold lead or just a lead in general, right? To get to know, like, and trust you in a 48-hour period, just to get money, right? Get more revenue inside your business, right? And a lot of you guys, like, you're not doing any of this, right? You're sending some warm emails, not warm, just emails in general. Maybe it's just calendar reminders. Maybe it's just like, a few value emails, but like you're not doing every single one to really increase the probability of you bringing money through the door in order for you to get multiple tens of thousands of dollars into your business. And yes, you can get multiple tens of thousands of dollars into business. And I can say that because I've, Alaya, right, Nick, right, and Frank all did this, the same exact strategies I'm presenting to you right now. They came to us, we find the bottleneck, we fix the bottleneck, and then we scale the hell out of them, right? And just more bottlenecks come. But that's, you scale until that happens, right? And then you stabilize, you fix the bottleneck, and then you do it again, right? You just go back and forth, right? Which part of the process are you at? Are you fixing stuff or are you scaling, And so, like, obviously, you could obviously sell, you could obviously scale and sell people on the back end, upsell or downsell on your calls or just in general, right? If, in your systems, right? If no one told you that, there you go. Scaling past, 100, 200, 300K a month, it's probably out of your reach right now. And that's why I kind of already mentioned inside the, I can't think of the word, but, if you're likely not making over 100K a month right now watching this video, right? That's a whole different animal, right? Past 100K, you need, you have to have your systems in place. You have to know how to, like, spot your bottleneck, find it, and then, fix it, and then scale at the same exact time while hiring 8 players inside your business and just keep going and keep going and keep going, right? There's a couple other things I didn't mention, but this isn't about scaling over 100K. This is about scaling past your ceiling, 20, 30, 40, 50K a month, right? And so I have, Instagram here. You could go on it, take a look at my content. I have a lot of more stuff, like, only about me. This is, Frank. This is, Nick's testimonials here. Everything we did for him. This is Alaya, 100K, screenshot here. We made her over $120,000. Her testimonial is actually on my Instagram. And Nick's testimonials are also on my Instagram. I have the case study videos on both of them, and as well as Frank here on my channel. So go watch them if you want to, really just sit down and go over the numbers, go over this entire process, right? Whoa. Exactly how to, like, spot your bottlenecks, how to actually, get people through the door without actually, spending more money on another agency, another, more ads just to give more money to Meta, the $1 trillion company, and Google, right? Let's hop on a call and I can go and walk you through 15, 20 minutes of your time, give you some value, tell you, where you're leaking revenue, doing the math on it, on seeing if we actually fix that certain, your show rates, your close rates, any part of your funnel that you're leaking revenue, and seeing where you are actually losing the most amount of money, and then telling you really what to fix first. And if you want it to know how to fix it, that's what you pay us for, right? And so if it's good for you, I'll give you the next roadmap steps going forward. And hope you liked this video. Go through my content. I have a lot of, deep rooted stuff.